Step right up. Climb aboard. The caravan is waiting.
Hogman, Saint of Swine, Whispering Pike, Arkansas, spring break, 1979. Rain hammered the Judd place like a punishment. The tin roof took the beating. The slaughter barn swallowed it. Inside, the lantern threw a sickly amber over hooks, blades, a sledgehammer with its face covered in dried fat. Sawdust on the floor had turned the color of old liver. Silas Judd moved through it like a man taking attendance, tall, lank, a grease-darkened, hickory-striped railroad engineer's cap with a frayed brim shadowed a ruined face, folds of wrinkles, a huge bulb of a nose run red with broken veins, lips cracked like drought. The overalls on him were mud black, torn at the cuffs. His hands were big and calloused. He set the lantern on the butcher's block. The light climbed the line of hanging hooks and made them sing a little in the draft. He walked the stalls slowly. At the old cow, he folded down one ear, pressed his brow to hers, and breathed until her steam and his became one wet cloud.
"Sweet girl,"
he said.
"Hush."
He opened a round tin of tallow, dipped 2 fingers, and smeared a greasy cross on her brow. The cow blinked and went still as stone. At the goat, he cupped both horns, cheek to skull, eyes closed like prayer. He nicked his own thumb with a paring knife. Dark blood welled. He rubbed a fat cross between its eyes.
"Saint of swine, of brine and blood, by tallow lamp and salted mud, keep herd and line from blight and bite. Hush every tongue and bless this night,"
he whispered. At the last pen, the boar shoved its bristled snout through the slats and huffed ropes of spit. The animal was huge and ugly and perfect, hide caked with mud, one ear ragged where a piece had gone missing from some old fight. Silas held out his bleeding thumb. The boar lapped hard, smacking, stringing saliva up his sleeve. He rubbed his bulbous nose to the snout, breath mingling with the boar's hot huffs. His purple, chapped lips brushed the ridge above each dull, wet eye in crude affection. His lips hovered at the snout, breathing with it as the boar's mouth smacked and slung ropes of spit. He whispered into the reek,
"Saint of sawdust, saint of brine, keep our herd and guard our line. Blood for bread and fat for light. Hush the tongues and bless this night."
Silas Judd leaned in close. The sounds were wet and obscene, a mouthy shuffle in the dark. He pressed his brow to its skull, murmuring to it the way a mother might soothe a fever in the dark.
"There now,"
he said.
"Saint's listening."
He lifted the lantern to the rafters. A boar skull was wired to a beam, smoke black with old grease. Iron nails dotted its brow. A few fat-soaked candles wept tallow, the wicks hissing. On the floor, a ring of salt traced a pale halo in the sawdust. Heat shimmered and the smell of scorched bristle hung in the air. A work shrine. The true altar waited below.
"First binding cometh,"
Silas said.
"Season's tithe near due."
The lantern flame trembled. From below, a damp huff pushed up through the cracks. Almost a grunt. A chain whispered once and went still. Silas didn't flinch. He only turned his head slightly, as if the slaughter barn itself had spoken to him from under the floor.
"Don't fret,"
he told the dark.
"They're coming."
The bell over the door gave a tired jangle as it swung. Fluorescence hummed. Dixie General smelled like motor oil and coffee that had forgotten when it was brewed. On the corkboard, Harvest Fair, pie and sausage contest in block letters, a blue ribbon pin still stuck to last year's photo. Beside the register, a handwritten sign, "Judd meats sold here." Cody, shaggy sun-bleached hair and a wispy mustache, spun a Copenhagen tin on his palm, the metal lid clicking softly, until Merle, the clerk, shot him a look. Tracy, tall, dark ponytail spilling from a denim jacket, chipped black polish on her nails, hauled a 30-pack of Jenny Light and set it on the counter with a hollow thump. Jake, broad-shouldered with farm boy forearms, wore flannel sleeves rolled to the elbow. He muscled a sack of charcoal up beside the Jennies and snagged a sleeve of red cups. Emily, strawberry hair in a single braid, freckles dusting her nose, a little silver cross at her throat, drifted from the postcard rack to the bakery case and lifted a cherry pie in a foil tin carefully. The kids were already halfway through checkout when the bell jangled again as Sheriff Waylon Holloway, broad-shouldered late 40s, sweat-darkened Stetson pulled low over a sun-browned face and a gray horseshoe mustache, stepped in, his dog Boone, a pale-eyed Catahoula shepherd dog, close at his heel. He slid in behind the kids at the counter and reached to the chip rack, plucking a vacuum-sealed bag of pork jerky from a peg. The other hand rested near a boar tooth on his keychain that clicked against his belt when he shifted. He tore the corner open, giving Merle a slight nod, and held the bag to his nose, taking a long, appreciative breath.
"Smells like market day,"
he said, almost to himself.
"Good fat this season."
He thumbed out a strip, bit off the end, then flicked a second piece in a lazy underhand toss to Boone. The dog snapped it from the air with a soft cough of teeth, while Holloway eyed the 30-pack on the counter.
"You kids headed up Pike Trance?"
he asked, voice mild. Jake, shoulders wide, stood with the bag of charcoal wedged in his elbow.
"Campground,"
he said.
"Couple nights. For spring break."
Merle, with a face like the back of a weathered hand, rang up the pie and sleeve of red cups and said,
"Market Saturday,"
he told the sheriff.
"Sausage contest and the Lord willing, clear skies."
Cody leaned on the counter like the world was a bar. He was the kind of cute that gets punched.
"We heard there's a farmer out yonder. Haunted barn. That true?"
Holloway folded the opening of the jerky bag and pressed a crease in it with his thumb. He didn't look at Cody. He looked at the 30-pack on the counter, then at Tracy's face.
"Don't go to that man's place,"
he said.
"Not on a dare. Not on a drunken whim. And not to get your pecker wet. That's private land. Folks get turned around out there and don't always turn back."
He looked at them from under the brim of his brown rancher hat.
"Catch my drift?"
Emily laughed because the room had gone serious and laughter was the only way through.
"We're just camping."
"Good,"
Holloway said. He slid the bag of meat into his back pocket and tipped 2 fingers to Merle. On his way out, his eyes paused on the corkboard. Then the door swung. Boone rose from under the rack, stretched, and followed at his heel. Tracy stared at the corkboard. A missing poster had been thumbtacked half under the flyer. It read, Jacob Hensley, last seen, County Road 8. The date was 2 summers back. The edges had curled from sun.
"Campground closes at 10?
Merle said. Cody snapped the Copenhagen tin in his palm.
"We'll be by at our campsite. Pecker's safe and sound,"
he said, and shook the tin like a rattle. They stepped into the evening, and the town watched them go the way a cat watches birds without moving at all. The Pike Trance River made the sound it had always made, before men named it or tried to own its banks. Their fire put a gold throat in the dark and drew in moths with burnt paper wings. Skinner chewed the night's silence in the tape deck.
"Kill it, Jake,"
Cody said, and Jake thumbed the volume down until the night had the room again. The beer buzzed warm in their bellies. Spring air at the Arkansas campground came in damp and sweet, loosening them, making them feel free in that dangerous kind of way, the way that whispers, "Go on, get in a little trouble." The crooked little joint Cody had passed around while the fire took hold spoke too, Cody popped a flashlight under his chin so the shadows carved hollows where his eyes should be.
All right, camp legend.
He grinned.
Farmer Silas Judd. Folks say he cut up his whole family and fed him to the pig lord out on County 8. Call him the Hog Man. They say if you park by his barn and turn your lights off, you'll hear the hooks sing, and if you laugh, he keeps the tongue.
He let the beam creep across their faces.
They call it the Saint of Swine.
He went on.
He wants college kids every spring or the hogs go bad and the creek dries up like it did in the 60s. And there was this creepy pastor, Ezra, who taught devil Latin and blessed the hooks with holy salt. Some say he skipped town in 63. My cousin says he sleeps under the church and only comes out on hog night.
Stop!
Tracy said, hugging herself.
It's not a joke. A lot of kids really have gone missing. They never found them.
The fire popped. The night listened.
Merle's sign.
Cody said, tipping his can at the stars.
Judd meat's sold here. That's not a warning. That's a menu.
Enough.
Emily said with a little grin. Her eyes caught the firelight and held it. Jake's arm rested around her shoulders, his thumb absently tracing the seam of her jacket.
The sheriff said stay away.
Jake reminded.
Exactly.
Cody said.
Reverse psychology. He knew if he told us not to, we would. Bet you there's a secret.
Tracy stared at the tree line where the campground lights gave up. The missing poster's laminated face floated up when she blinked. She felt a pull, a dare, the itch to look over whatever fence a man had told her she couldn't.
5 minutes.
She said, surprising herself.
From the road. Let's do it.
Cody popped to his feet like a bad idea had found legs.
Road, porch, barn, back in time for more cherry pie,
he said. He tipped his chin at Tracy with a cocky grin.
If there's a cellar, we take 5 for a makeout tour, just you and me.
Tracy stuck 2 fingers in her mouth and gave him a good old-fashioned choke gag. He waggled his eyebrows.
And if we see a ghost, we ask for autographs.
They stamped the fire low and rolled out in Cody's '73 Chevy Nova. 10 minutes later, County Road 8 narrowed. The night moved like a hungry thing pacing just outside the headlights. A hand-painted sign nailed to a split fence post bled the words, S. Judd Meats, Private, No Trespassing. Beyond it, a dirt drive opened under bowed branches. Fences ran along the drive, mended and remended. Out in a forgotten field, past the fence line, a scarecrow leaned at an impossible angle, burlap face rain-sodden and stitched into a grin. The drive broke out of the trees and the Judd place opened into its main yard. Past a low machine shed, a calving pen, and a sagging hay barn with doors yawning open, the slaughter barn rose like a ship. Its patched tin roof rusted to dark plates. A stub of meat rail jutted from the gable above the big slider with a steel trolley parked on it. A shallow concrete apron sloped to a grated drain, stained brown-black. Even from the yard, a sweet metal reek of lye and old brine rode the rain. A single window near the peak held a square of lantern amber. It flickered as if breathing.
5 minutes.
Tracy breathed.
Less.
Jake said. Cody made a U-turn and faced away from the barn, parking next to a chicken coop. The engine ticked as it cooled in the light rain.
Porch and back,
Cody whispered, and he was already out, boots on gravel.
and if we see anybody,
We leave.
Tracy finished. They passed a well with a wooden cover that had been chained shut. Under the eaves sat a butcher's block stained near black with old blood. Flies rose, annoyed, and settled again when the kids moved on. Tracy heard it first, a faint chain clinking somewhere under the barn. She held her breath so she could hear it again.
Anybody else?
She started.
raccoons.
Cody said quickly.
Raccoons wearing what? Fucking gold chains?
Emily said, wincing at her own joke.
2 minutes.
Cody whispered.
We duck in the slaughter barn, snag something for proof, a tag, a hook, then out.
Souvenir and gone,
Tracy said. Jake breathed.
Forget the porch then. Okay. No hero shit, Cody.
The slaughter barn's sliding door was secured with a twist of baling wire. An iron drop pin dangled from a loop of baling twine beside the door track, its tip polished bright where it fit a drilled stop hole that showed fresh scrape marks. Cody flicked it loose. Wood talked against wood as the door opened an inch, then another. A draft came out, cold and rotten. Inside, hooks hung from a rail like punctuation marks that wanted to argue. A lantern burned near a wall where knives lay with their smooth handles facing the same way. Down the center ran a long aisle to a narrow man door at the far end. To the left yawned the milk room doorway. To the right, the pen aisle broke toward the hogs. Midway along the side wall, a low feed door sat crooked. 2 boards missing left a man-wide gap to the yard.
Okay.
Jake whispered, throat tight.
We looked.
Wait,
Cody whispered.
snag a tag for proof and we're gone.
Cody slid in like permission lived anywhere a man could fit. The others followed. Straw whispered secrets underfoot. Something dripped slowly into a pan. Plink, plink, like a clock with a bad heart. A hanging hook jolted loose and skittered across the concrete with a knife-on-plate shriek. Emily clapped a hand over her mouth.
Let's leave. This is stupid.
She hissed through her fingers. Tracy felt the beer buzzing under her skin. The fear and closeness lit a horny little heat she hated, quick as shame. Then, they saw him. Between 2 empty stalls, leaning in the doorway to the milk room, a figure stood and took up the frame. Tall, shoulders like a gate. One hand hung loose and low, fingers like split wood. The other cupped a lantern by its bail. The name patch on his greasy and dirt-riddled engineer cap caught the light just enough to throw letters. S-J-U-D-D. No one spoke. Silas Judd didn't speak either. He lifted the lantern an inch, and the glass threw a creeping shine across a face too long and too wrong. Pupils filmed like oil. Pouches of sleepless flesh, a bulb nose bloomed red with busted veins. The light caught the split corners of his mouth where old cuts shaped like tusks. His jaw worked side to side, and a thread of molasses-dark spit stretched and snapped between his dried lips. He set the light down on a small table.
Out. Now.
Jake wheezed. They backed toward the door, each one understanding they were now prey. Cody turned to run first because, of course, he did. His heel caught a coil of hose. His shoulder brushed a hanging hook and set it singing. The note climbed into the rafters and came back as a goblin giggle. Silas moved 1 step. His boots loved this floor. They knew every soft spot and every hollow. The squelch they made was almost tender.
Hey,
Cody blurted, hands up.
Hey, no harm meant, mister?
Silas lifted his other hand. In it was a hay hook, hickory handle, finger grooved and bound with twine. The bite and barb made a cruel curve of a question mark, stained the brown black of old blood. A few pale hairs clung to the grain. Silas didn't swing. He waited. He watched.
Out.
Jake said again, louder. The door behind them slid, and then didn't. It hit a drop pin in the track and wouldn't go farther. It groaned and gave a hand's width, no more. Rain glittered through the slit.
Left.
Jake snapped.
Milk room.
Cody jammed his shoulder in the gap. Silas stepped and yanked. The hay hook went up under Cody's jaw with a wet snap. It took the voice out of him first. His legs forgot what to do. His hands remembered and tried to climb the air. Silas hauled him by the mouth like a butcher drags a gaffed hog along a rail. Silas snorted. The hook's point dug deeper. Silas yanked a ceiling chain down and fed it to the hook. Iron bit iron, and Cody went up, choking on his own blood. Teeth clicking like dice as the filed barb seated deep in the palate. His boots bicycled, carving muddy crescents in the straw while a ribbon of spit and red slapped his chest.
Jesus,
Jake said, and it wasn't prayer.
Go.
Tracy said, and it was. Emily lurched forward and gagged, beer, bile, and sweet cherry pie blowing back up in a hot sheet that slapped the straw and her own boots. She slipped in it, palms skating. Strings of vomit hung from her lips and chin as she tried to run. Tracy hooked an arm under her and hauled. Emily kept heaving in hitching bursts.
Move!
Tracy hissed, dragging her through the warm mess as iron rattled overhead. Behind them, Silas worked the chain in short, sure jerks, breath chuffing in hoggish grunts.
Hush,
He said, almost tender like to a skittish sow.
St. Wake's wrong for loud ones.
They broke, hard left, and the slaughter barn gathered them the way a spider gathers flies. With the slider pinned and the center man door chained, the milk room was the only run that wasn't a wall, it seemed. The pen aisle to the right was crowded with hogs pressing against the rails. Jake grabbed Tracy's wrist. Tracy grabbed Emily's hand. Silas had slipped off the slider and into the center aisle, his fist wrapped around a rope that snaked up to a pulley over the milkroom door. He set his shoulder to the jamb, ready to yank and drop the weight.
Go. Left.
Jake hissed, leading the way. They stumbled through the doorway where Silas had stood moments before.
Jake.
Tracy whispered.
Don't.
He didn't hear the counterweight come down because it didn't make the sound a man expects of death. It made a soft sack of sand thump, and then Jake folded like a hinge. Silas had a rope in his hand and a pulley over the door. Concrete poured into a feed bag. Jake's neck let out a wet pop. The weight drove him forward, and the base of his skull split, spattering the straw with gray pink. His body didn't understand at first and clawed at the floor, trying to rise, a slick loop of intestine unspooling from a tear he'd opened on the churn's edge. He gargled something that came out like,
Hump me.
but meant,
Help me.
and then whatever told the rest of him how to move went dark. Emily gagged. She ran into Tracy's hands and then out of them. Silas let the weight rise again with a steady pull, patient as dusk, then took a turn around the door jamb cleat and snugged 2 half hitches to hold it fast. He bent and marked Jake's chest with a quick swipe of a grease pencil, too, like a butcher labeling a ham. Tracy dragged Emily by the sleeve in panic. They spilled into the long aisle where the pens opened. Pigs thudded in their straw. They hopped onto the narrow catwalk, 2 feed planks slung across the tops of the sties for mucking and feed, using it to cross. The first board, rotten, gave under Tracy's boot. She punched through to the waist and caught the top rail, hanging while her legs kicked over meat that had been taught to eat.
Pull.
She said through teeth, and Emily found her again and yanked. The board gave, the joist held. Tracy got her legs back under her and they ran. Behind them, something skittered across the concrete and then was quiet. Silas came on at a steady pace, boots making a wet 2-beat drag, breath chuffing like a hog through the split of his teeth. Under it, he muttered the right, scraps rising and falling.
New brine and blood, tallow lamp and salted mud.
As his hook ticked the boards. The slaughter barn didn't hurry. It had the whole night. They fetched up at the butcher's block. Silas's lantern sat on the slab where he'd left it, throwing islands of light across the scarred wood. The knives lay in a neat row.
Please.
Emily said to no one.
Please.
Silas didn't speak. He reached to a run of black iron pipe and cracked open a red-handled steam valve. The scalding barrel in the corner was already shivering at a hard simmer. He bled in live steam and the water surged to a rolling boil.
Bath time.
Tracy's hand shot for steel and closed on a boning fork, 2 butcher tines meant to pin flesh to wood. Panic made her choke up on the handle. She surged and buried the boning fork in his forearm. Both tines dug into flesh. Black blood climbed the steel. Silas made a short, piggish grunt, more irritation than pain, and caught her wrist with his other hand. He didn't squeeze. He rolled the bones until her fingers opened. He wrenched the fork free with a wet metal click and kept it. He turned to Emily, who had backed herself against the block.
Don't.
Tracy begged, frozen and afraid to try to run past him. Tracy grabbed for his arm. He snapped a short backhand across her cheekbone, a dull crack that put starbursts in her eyes and set her against the door frame. Silas set the fork's twin tines under Emily's chin, right in the soft notch, just enough to dimple skin.
Open wide,
he said, breath foul and thick as sin. Emily clamped her teeth and tucked her chin. He brought the fork higher, trying to pry. She caught the shaft with both hands and shoved back.
Come on now, open up,
he said again, patient as the moon. Tracy, blinking through tears, snatched a cardboard box of canning salt off a shelf and flung it. The flap burst against Silas's cheek. A white sheet dusted his eyes and lips. He reeled half a step, snorting like a hog, blinking hard. He gave up on the tongue. He slid the fork up, tines glinting, and set one prong in the inner corner of Emily's right eye.
Look at me,
he said almost kindly. Emily jerked.
Steady, old girl.
Tracy lunged again. He turned and smashed the heel of his hand across her face, a bell-ringing hit that put her on her hands. The twin tines punched through the soft globe of Emily's right eyeball with a wet pop. Clear jelly blew out like egg white and webbed his knuckles. Blood went bright and thin down Emily's cheek. The iris flowered black around steel. The other tine scraped bone with a chalky squeal. Emily's scream came out wrong, high and strangled. She kicked, boots drumming the slab. He twisted once to free the fork. A ribbon of vitreous hung from the tine and swung before stringing down his wrist. Tracy came at him again, this time with a small knife she'd snatched from the table and drove it up for the soft place just above his ribs. The point bit and sank a finger's depth. A quick burst of tar-black, rancid-smelling blood spat across her wrist. Silas only made a short, piggish grunt, and his eyes stayed dull and steady. He shoved her back, an open palm blast to the breastbone that hammered her into the wall, breath gone in a grunt. Steam roared. The barrel boiled. Silas fisted Emily's belt and the back of her jacket and tipped her face first over the scalding barrel, a butcher's vat of boiling water used to strip hogs. He kept his forearms clear of the steam and pressed until her mouth and ruined eye went under. The boil swallowed her scream, her hair corkscrewed and plastered to her scalp. After 2 slow breaths, he hauled her back by the armpits and laid her on the block. Skin slid in pale sheets. Blisters budded and burst. Paths of raw scalp showed through. The room hissed and stank like wet bacon. Tracy hid her scream in her arm. Her eyes went to the neat row of knives, then to Silas, back to the knives. And she stayed still. If she grabbed one now, she'd blow her only chance to get out. The guilt came hot anyway, and seeing Emily's blistered, ruined face told her there was nothing to save. He touched her sizzling cheek with the back of his hand the way he had touched the cow and the goat, and for one insane second, Tracy thought he might apologize. He did not. He bent over her and whispered, as soft as a sin in church.
Saint of swine, of brine and blood, take the tongue and spare the herd.
For a heartbeat, the right took him. His eyes went far away. Tracy ran. She didn't bolt for the pinned slider or the chained man door. The only mouth open was the low cellar hatch behind the butcher's block, breathing mold and grease from below. The chain under the floor ticked. Silas's head was still bowed to Emily, whispering. Tracy slid through the hatch and found that the steps down were cracked and crooked. The air had a thickness that hated lungs. More smells hit her, salt and fat and wet wood. The lantern on the table burned low like a lost spirit. A ledger lay open, scratched with a grease pencil, 1963. First binding, Hannah, Ruth, Eli, Caleb, Miriam. Forgive me. Easter Monday, 1963. Reverend Ezra Pike wrote the Latin and set the salt. Waylon brought the knife. 1964. Spring tithe, 3 bones. Hogs spared. 1964. Fall. Tithe, 2 bones. Milk runs sweet. She turned the page and found the same handwriting, words written like a diary. It goes on, year after year, blood and bones for fat and brine. After the first sick season of 63, the hog's eyes went glassy and the calves foamed. The papers call it hog cholera. The old men call it punishment. The feed mill burned. The creek went to stones. Credit dried up. Men hobbled lame cattle to keep them off the rows and culled runts that starved in the lots. Reverend Ezra Pike set the circle and put Latin to the prayer. Here the hand in the ledger changes.
Waylon and Reverend Ezra Pike brought the prayer. Sanctus Veras will keep the herd if I pay. First price paid, my house. Forgive me, let him in, let him wear me. I'm the hogman for Whispering Pike. Bones due each spring and fall. Speak his name soft and he listens. Speak it loud and he wakes wrong.
At the bottom of the page, she sees it signed S. Judd. Above the table rose the altar proper. A boar skull wired into the joists, smoke black and nail-studded. The iron spikes set in a crooked constellation that bled rust down the bone. From the tusks hung a rosary braided of hog bristle and butcher's twine. Little charms dangled from it, cattle tags and human teeth. Candle stubs drowned in tallow had wept ropes that trapped hair and flies. The wax hissed and popped like fat. On a crate beneath, mason jars of cloudy vinegar and salt held pale pieces. A slice of tongue, a small ear folded on itself, and an eye gone milky in the pickling juice. Labels in grease pencil. Spring, fall. Someone had carved Sanctus Veras into the joist. Underneath were children's names that had been cut and crossed one by one. Hooks hung along the far wall. 5 of them held skeletons, flesh long gone. The clothes still clung in places. A dress, a shirt with pearl snaps, a little pair of trousers whose knees had been patched once with love. A 6th hook held something fresh, still gently swaying. Above it, a meat rail chain disappeared up through a hatch in the ceiling, the same chain they'd heard underfoot. Cody's throat had been ripped into a wide, lunatic grin by the hook's upward pull, skin and meat peeled back in a crescent from notch to ear. Crimson dripped from the death smile in slow ticks. His jeans pocket sagged. A rabbit-foot key fob hung halfway out of his front pocket. Tracy swallowed, reached into the warm denim and yanked the keys free. On the table beside the ledger sat a family photo, wife and children with their eyes cut out and pinned through with a prayer card that read, "Saint of Sawdust, keep our herd fed." A newspaper clipping had been tacked to the wall. Judd family tragedy. Barn fire claims 5. Someone had scrawled over the headline, "Not fire, unfed." Something shifted above her. Dust sifted from the joists. Breath came through the cracks. Slow and hoggish, a low, grunted squeal threaded with spit. An eye peered down through a seam in the boards, glassy with lantern glow. The chain clinked again, an answer to a question she hadn't asked. Then a voice murmuring through the floorboards, soft and close.
Saint of swine, of brine and blood, by tallow lamp and salted mud.
The rest of it rolled on above her, a lullaby meant for flesh and hooks.
Hush every tongue, bless this night.
Above, a hog squealed once. High and wrong, and then the chain gave a soft, hulking thump. And silence. Tracy closed the ledger and shoved it up under her jacket. It felt heavy, like it carried death. She braced to bolt up the stairs. Then Silas Judd's looming figure filled the doorway above. He snorted. The lantern in his hand made his eyes slick. He spat a wad of tar-black spit that slapped the stairs.
Please.
Tracy breathed. He turned his head. His jaw slid side to side like a hog nosing under a fence, slow, stubborn. A boar's tooth hung on a leather thong at his throat.
Sanctus Veras,
She whispered, soft, remembering the scrawled words in the ledger. Speak his name soft and he listens, she thought. He tilted his head like a hog trying to puzzle a gate. She slid past him, flinching as she brushed against him up the cellar steps. She remembered the low feed door in the side wall, 2 boards missing, and she bolted for it, squeezing through into the rain. The yard seemed to have grown. She cut toward the shadowed shape of the '73 Chevy Nova. Behind her, boots dragged through the mud, slow, heavy 2 beats. The sound came closer in the rain. She skidded, caught herself, and kept moving. The Chevy's door wouldn't budge. Cody had locked it by habit. For one heartbeat, she died. Then she remembered the keys she'd taken from Cody's pocket. The Nova's lock popped under her shaking hand. She dropped into the car's seat, jammed the rabbit foot key into the slot, and twisted. The engine coughed, caught, not happily, but showing some mercy. She mashed the pedal. The tires spat mud. In the side mirror, a looming figure, Silas Judd, still as a fence post. One hand loose and the other resting a long butcher's axe against his shoulder. The mirror bent his face. Nostrils flared and flattened, jowl folds heavy, the split corners of his mouth tugged down. He watched her go, breath fogging and short, animal huffs. Then the drive curled and he dropped out of the frame. The dirt drive unwound, then gave way to blacktop, and finally to the square of town. The sheriff's office sat in the same tired brick as the jail and courthouse, a square of yellow light in the rain. Tracy parked crooked across 2 spaces, stumbled up the steps, and shouldered through the door with the ledger clutched to her chest. Sheriff Holloway sat back in his chair behind the desk, boots up on his desk, hat brim low. Boone lay at the legs of the chair. The lobby beyond was dark. No dispatcher, no deputy. The wall clock ticked. Tracy slapped the ledger onto his desk. Words fell out of her.
barn, hooks. He killed them. Cody, Jake, there's a cellar. There are bodies. Emily's eye. You have to.
Uh-huh,
Holloway said softly. He reached over and turned the police radio down.
Uh-huh.
He moved his feet off the desk and leaned forward, tipping the head off a porcelain chicken toothpick holder, and plucked a toothpick. He picked a piece of jerky from his teeth with it, not seeming worried by anything Tracy said. Boone stood and came to heel without being told.
Let's see here,
he said. Holloway flipped the ledger open.
63,
he said.
the year the creek quit and the feed mill burned. Credit dried up. Folks had to choose between feeding kids or stock. They hobbled lame cattle to keep them out of the rows. They culled runts and left them to starve. Then the sickness came, hog cholera. Pigs' eyes went glassy, calves foamed. Paper called it an outbreak. We called it what it was.
He tapped the page.
Punishment.
He didn't look at her while he talked. He reached into a drawer, pulled out a vacuum-sealed bag, cracked a corner, and breathed deep. He tore a strip and shoved it in his mouth, tore another and flicked it to Boone, lazy underhand, the dog catching it with a soft cough of teeth.
I didn't bring it alone.
He went on.
Reverend Ezra Pike put Latin to the old words. Sanctus veris. The saint keeps the herd if you pay. First binding took his house, every soul under his roof. Then Silas. That's the price that sticks to a pact. I wouldn't have asked a man to pay it if there was another way.
He laid a palm on the ledger.
After that, it's simple as chores. Spring and fall, 5 bones. After you, we'll need 1 more. Fall break will be here before you know it.
Holloway gave her a cocky wink and went on.
It isn't a thing in the woods, it's a pact. It rides a man when the work's due, wears him like a coat, and then it sleeps. Silas was the biggest farmer in Whispering Pike. Folks made him Hogman, the one who brings the bones. Quiet nights for the taking. We feed the town, we keep the herds from dying off, and the river from running dry. Church suppers, market day. Folks get to live their little lives.
Her eyes slid to the brass nameplate facing her. Sheriff Waylon Holloway. Waylon. It clicked with the ledger line. Waylon brought the knife. How stupid am I, she thought. Tracy stared at him.
You knew.
My job is to keep this county fed and safe,
he said.
Out here, that means honoring what we owe.
He touched the boar tooth at his belt.
Speak his name soft and he listens.
His voice fell to a murmur like a closing prayer.
Saint of swine, of brine and blood, by tallow lamp and salted mud.
Boone's ears tipped forward.
Keep herd in line from blight and bite. Hush every tongue and bless this night.
Holloway set the bag down and turned it so the stamp caught the lamp. Tracy saw it then. Judd's jerky. Boone nosed his knee. Holloway tore 1 more strip, 1 for him, 1 for Boone. He tipped the brim of his hat up just enough for the grin to show in his eyes. Tracy lurched for the door and yanked the handle. Rain breathed. A man filled the threshold. Reverend Ezra Pike, tall as a doorway, near 6'8", long and gaunt, collar gone yellow, a broad-brimmed black hat dripping. His face was corpse pale, the color of candle wax, cheekbones high and thin, ebony eyes small and set too deep. He held a thin prayer book wrapped in butcher paper. He smiled without teeth, just gums the color of lard, but the smile didn't touch his eyes.
Soft child.
His voice sounded like a tired preacher's, soft and breathy, slow vowels that dragged.
Saint wakes wrong for loud ones.
He flared his nostrils.
You'll make good jerky,
he murmured, almost kindly.
Thin sliced, salted right.
Then 2 wet little pig snorts puffed out through his nose. Blue sky. Flags snapped. Grease smoke and cinnamon rode the air. On a folding table, a jelly jar of toothpicks labeled boar bristles. Take 1. The bristles looked real. People chewed and talked with their mouths full. A little boy worked a strip between his teeth and laughed. His gums shone. His mother said,
"Say thank you."
A fly crawled the rim of the sample tray and did not leave. A cooler bled a thin pink line into the dust. A church lady slapped a ribbon, best sausage, onto a tent pole. Sheriff Waylon Holloway walked Boone down the aisle. He stopped at the jerky pyramid, lifted a vacuum-sealed bag, split a corner, and breathed in. He chewed 1 strip. He flicked 1 to Boone. Holloway turned the bag so the stamp caught the morning light.
Judd's jerky.
Thanks for watching. I hope you were scared to death. If your heart's still beating, like and share. And if you dare, subscribe for more delicious horror. We'll be waiting, right here in the dark.